Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. Sexual intimacy is a very important part of a relationship between a husband and wife. And it is an important part to keeping that relationship close to one another. And when people abuse it, or rather break that intimacy to share with others, it can definitely very much impact that relationship negatively. Infidelity is an issue, but not of an infidelity of sexual misconduct, but also of emotional and mentally. And as I was trying to think for today's topic, or how I should talk about it today, I will admit, which was not definitely harder than usual for this one, I came to this very interesting idea. Oftentimes, infidelity comes from running away from a problem. Usually that you're unable to connect correctly or how you want with your wife. Sometimes it might be somewhat understandable, such as your wife, or spouse being extremely rude, unloving, kind, problematic, or or less so, maybe they're just boring or aren't as exciting anymore. It's more understandable than others, but even then, all types are bad. But oftentimes we talk about the sexual one. Oftentimes we don't really talk about the emotional or the mental one. I've heard about it, particularly some talks on LDS.org and the Liahona or the Ensign talk about it. A couple I've read. But I started really thinking about it. And I started wondering, is it actually a bigger problem than we actually think? I thought it was very curious that Brother Williams was talking about the importance of not just only being closer with your wife and being one with them, but being very careful of letting other people inhabit that close space with you. One, letting your wife be that person and not to let others. Otherwise, that relationship will start to deteriorate. I thought it was a very curious thought. And he wasn't just going about like other women. It's definitely important, particularly other women for a man and other men for a woman than your spouse. But it's also talking about family, friends, even acquaintances. Or I guess, yeah, I guess it'd be family or friends. And I was very interested thought, like, why, shouldn't you be close with your family? Shouldn't a wife or a husband be close to their parents so they can get advice and help, from the older generation who's already gone through their problems? But he made some very interesting observations, Brother William, about how, well, there's might be some truth in that, but it also can lead to all sorts of other problems by itself. Everything has consequences to it, good and bad. We just sometimes don't understand or think about all the consequences that do come with something. It's very true that you can get advice, but that can also have some many negative repercussions, such as less trust with your spouse. Your spouse expects you to go to them, and causing perhaps untold drama, considering that the parents will often take the side of their child and not of the other spouse, and creating all sorts of drama. But I was thinking about even with just friends and such, and it made me an interesting thought. Do we sometimes run away from these problems just because we're uncomfortable, we don't know what to do, and then we ask for other people's advice so we don't have to deal with the uncomfortable, so we can escape it for a moment and then come back to it, or maybe not at all. Oftentimes we talk about how running away from reality is a horrible thing. Often with video games or just even books or any sort of activity or hobby that can consume a person's life. Even work by itself can be escaping from reality. Now, why are we escaping reality? Well, sometimes I think, at least for definitely for married people, oftentimes it's a relationship with their families, maybe their children, but oftentimes their spouse. And because, well, I understand it's hard to build a good relationship with your spouse, constantly working with them and having to deal with the ugly realities of paying bills and trying to raise children, which we've been having children on and on for years. they are, well, a human species, and we still don't know how the best way of doing it. Not even close, it feels like at times. Some people get it, but generally as a society, it feels like we don't got an idea. And the more I thought about it, I realized, well, friends, while they're good, it's important to be with one another. The most important one and the most valuable relationship is your wife, isn't it? It's the one that you're going to spend the most time with in eternity. The one that you really should put the effort into. And even video games, or let's say even entertainment. Entertainment can actually enrich a person's life if it's the correct type. But too much of it, and it can very much, become a negative aspect. Too much of a good thing can be bad. But oftentimes we don't understand what's too much. Sometimes it seems like it's only a little bit, but it's in fact too much. Is it considerably a lot? Enough to cause a problem. That's something for entertainment, but even for relationships. I don't know how to best put it in words, and I'll have to study and understand this idea more through the years. But I find it very interesting how oftentimes our friends and our families, if we go to them with our problems or spend time with them, really it's just a way to get away from our wife. It's a way to not want to have that relationship progress. It's painful for it to progress. Extraordinary painful. Even myself, I stay away from painful things. But that's how we grow. But yet, oftentimes, how should I say? I think it's interesting in thought of how much our relationship could be better if we only spend our time with that person and really push it into ways just trying to connect with one another and willingly sacrificing everything you can to improve that. It's an interesting thought of how much that can go and improve. And if you put that philosophy of putting everything into improving and growing, how much could a person achieve? Well, either way, thank you very much and have a great and wonderful day.